The flies here are can be very a burden. Okay, you know what the fly? The fly goes all around you, and you're like guiding and like. Yes. So just for information, it's a challenging thing. In the winter, it's less problematic, but today it's very windy. Okay. So first of all, we entered into the baptism site. Okay. This is a place where, according to the Jewish tradition, this is the place where the Israelites, when they enter into the Promised Land, they cross the Jordan River from that point. They cross the Jordan River from that point. This is the point where they entered into the Promised Land, right in front of Jericho. Okay? And very interesting to look at different maps from the old times. Yes? Different maps from the old times of the area, showing us. Just a minute. I want to see. Yes. You see that Madaba map? You know Madaba map?
Madaba.
Yeah, sure. Okay. The Madaba map is a map that was found in the other side of the Jordan River, in the east bank of the Jordan River, in Jordan, in a city called Madaba. Late 19th century, they wanted to renovate a church in Madaba, and they're digging underneath the church, and they expose, without knowing, yes, they expose the whole mosaic from the 6th century, you know, the peak of the Byzantine era in the land of Israel. They exposed it, and what do we see in Madaba map? We see different areas of the land of Israel from ancient times. It's one of the rare documents that we have from that point in history. It's a religious map because it's not a map which is accurate. This map puts an emphasis on certain areas in Israel, okay? For an example, you see that the map is not all of it survived. Some of it was damaged. But you can see this whole spot. This is the Dead Sea. But you see the Jordan River goes all the way here. This is the northern part of the Dead Sea. Exactly where we're standing. This is Jerusalem, by the way. But you see how big this area is. And over here, if you look carefully, you'll be able to see fish goes all the way here. And then, in a certain point, the fish goes backwards. Why? The salt of the Dead Sea, exactly. So you can see it in the 6th century Madaba map. What else do we have in that Madaba map, which is very important? We have a resolution, we have a view, a very deep view of how the area around this point looked like. So we have the animals, and we have some of the plants that used to be here in ancient times. You can see the balsamon. Have you heard about the balsamon? Okay, so you didn't speak about it. It's a very ancient kind of bush that used to grow here, and they used to make perfume. Balsamon, but it's called balsamon. But it's not the balsamon that you know. Yes, it's in Hebrew. It's the same. In Hebrew, it's the same word of a balsamon.
I thought
but it's not. It's not the one. It's not one. Balsamon. It's an ancient bush, ancient vegetation that used to grew up here, and they used to make perfume out of it. Okay, and in ancient world, in ancient times, this was a huge importance of economical resource. Okay, that's why they grew it over here. So we see the balsamon. And another thing that we see here, right on the edge of the tip-top upper area of the Dead Sea, is a place called, and it's written here, Beit Obara. Beit Obara. And right next to it, it's called the place of John the Baptist. Okay? And you see a house. So it means that there used to be here a church that was belonged or devoted for John the Baptist. And the exact location is the place where we saw here. Yes, that was sitting on a Byzantine time. Okay? We saw it also in Izar Hirschfeld's map that they opened it in the morning in Jerusalem and the Jordan River. We saw John the Baptist church. Okay, so Beit Obara. In Hebrew, it's the opposite of Beit HaMa'abara. Beit Obara, Beit HaMa'abara. What is Ma'abara?
Desert?
To pass.
Ma'avar in Hebrew is a place of passing. Beit HaMa'abara, Beit Obara, and the Jewish Israeli kibbutz that was established here in the early 30s called Beit HaArava. Okay, so it's the opposition of Ma'abara, Arava. Okay, and what you said, the passing gate, the passing path to cross the Jordan River in ancient times was here. And it wasn't the same river as we see now. This river is like very lame, very like small and tired.
Why?
But in ancient times, this used to be a huge river, and it was very dangerous to cross it. And you needed to cross the river in certain points which were safe enough. So a little bit further down south to us, just about 2 kilometers south to us, you know, there's a huge ravine that goes into the Jordan River, riverbed. We spoke about it today quite a lot. The stream of Wadi al-Kelt, Nachal Prat. Okay? Now, it does not flow throughout the whole year, but during floodings and during the times of the winter, it pushes a lot of water into the Jordan River. So it means that if you want to cross the Jordan River, you better don't do it near to Wadi al-Kelt, the meeting of Wadi al-Kelt with the Jordan River. You better do it beforehand. Historically, topographically, geographically, this point is the higher point where the floor, of the Jordan River is a bit high. So it means that the water are not quick, they are not deep, they are not as deep and as quick and as dangerous as in other spots in the Jordan River. And this is why when we look carefully into the Madaba map, we'll be able to see here a small boat which is connected to a stick over here, and it's moving people from one bank to another. Okay? So when we open the Madaba map, we understand that in 6th century this was the place where people passed through the Jordan River, and it's not different from the times of Jesus. Okay? 400 years beforehand, 600 years beforehand, during Second Temple times, the place where John the Baptist, the cousin of Jesus, was baptizing people in the Jordan River was here. Why he was standing over here?
Because as you said, it's the lowest place or highest place for the...
So he can stand.
He can stand, but why come here specifically?
Because this was his mission to go to the desert. A message to go to the desert.
Okay, he could meet here a lot of people, and he can baptize people here. Okay? And so he came over here because it's a central place in ancient times, during Jesus' times, also during 6th century, okay? And also during probably the year minus 1,200. What happened in one minus 200? 1,200? What happened in 1,200?
So the Israelite, the entry of the Israelite, right?
The beginning of the Iron Age starts with what?
Yes.
With what?
Entering of Joshua, as you said, Joshua.
Joshua
Entered with a miracle, with the art
crosses
of
the
covenant.
Jordan River in this point. Exactly. Okay. And I'm reading from Joshua 3, number 14. And it came to pass when the people removed from their tents to pass over the Jordan, the priests that bore the ark of the covenant being before the people, and when they that bore the ark come into the Jordan, and the feet of the priests that bore the ark were dipped in the brink of the water, for the Jordan overflowed all its bank all the time of harvest. Okay, so what it describes here in the Bible, that when the priests touched the water, when their legs touched the water, yes, they were able to cross the Jordan River, which was totally full during this time of the year. By the way, it was the time of the spring after the winter. Okay, and what happens in it, that the waters which came down from above stood and rose up in one heap, a great way from Adam, the city that is beside Zarathan. Okay, it's described that in this area near to a city called Adam, the waters stopped and went backwards in order to enable the priests to go through with the Ark of Covenant. And those that went down towards the Sea of the Arabah, even the Salt Sea, were wholly cut off. And the people passed over right against Jericho. Okay?
It is the same miracle which happens in the Red Sea.
Yes,
right?
yes. It refers us to the same miracle that happens in the Red Sea. Now they are not entering the desert. They leave the desert behind them. They are entering into the Promised Land. Entering the Promised Land involves with touching the holy water of the Jordan River. They don't say that it's holy, but they say that something in the touching of the water, entering into the water, enables the people to cross through the Jordan and come into the Promised Land. From that point and onwards, the Israelites are people with a definition, with a sovereignty, yes, with pride, and also this is the point where they stop to receive the food from the sky, from God, and they have to cultivate the land. And the exact location of the place is in front of Jericho. Remember we saw Jericho? And Jericho is right in front of us on our western side. Okay, so this is the place where they cross the Jordan River. And with that tradition, another tradition that is connected to that place, does anyone know?
Elijah descended from heaven. Yes.
Elijah and Elisha. Elisha, yeah, it's very hard.
We
and
call
I'm
it
reading
Elias.
from 2
Elias.
Kings 2:7. Try to be with me, okay? It's a bit hard the word, but the word.
7.
2 Kings
Chapter 2, 7.
chapter 2,
Which verse?
7.
Thank you.
Okay, listen up. What happens? A call of joy, joyful call, like that. Yes, it's an Indian baptism. That was supposed to be a joke, but it didn't go well. Okay, the story tells us. Elisha and Elijah. This is how I say it, right?
Elijah.
Elijah and Elisha.
So both of them.
Elijah is the teacher.
Elijah.
Is the spiritual teacher and inspiration for Elisha. They go from wherever they were. Elijah is being called by God to go to Jericho. And he tells Elisha, please stay here. I need to go to Jericho. God called me. And Elisha tells him, I will never leave you behind. Okay? I will go with you. So they go together to Jericho. And in Jericho, Elijah tells him, you know, God called me to go to the Jordan River. Stay here. And Elisha tells him, no, I will not leave you behind. I will come with you. And both of them are walking into the Jordan River. And behind of them, there are 50 prophets. Yes, these are like not real prophets. These are men who claim to be prophets. Yes? They're following them. They're following them, but they want to know what exactly is going to happen. Why? Because they know that the big day is about to arrive. The day what will happen? Elijah is going to be taken up to the sky. Okay? And by the way, in a certain point, they go to Elisha and they tell him, "We've heard that your teacher is about to leave you, huh? Now we'll see how strong and big you are." And you know what Elisha tells them? Be quiet. I know exactly. Be quiet. So they are quiet, but they are going behind them to see what will happen. Yes, they're waiting to see some action. And 50 men of the sons of prophets went and stood over against them afar off. What does it mean? It means that Elijah and Elisha are walking towards the Jordan River, and these 50 men are standing somewhere near us, where the toilets are, where the bus we left them. They're looking for what's going on. And Elisha and Elijah are walking towards the Jordan River. And you know, it's a huge river. It flows very, very heavily. And they too stood by the Jordan River. And Elijah took his mantle and wrapped it together and smote the waters. And they were divided higher and higher, so that they too went over on dry ground. Okay? And it came to pass, when they were gone over, that Elijah said unto Elisha, "Ask what I shall do for thee before I am taken from thee." Okay? Elijah is asking Elisha, "What are you asking for me before I'm going to be taken off from you?" Listen what he asked. And Elisha said, "I pray thee, let a double portion of thy spirit to be upon me." What does he ask? He asks, if you have a power, I would want to have your power, but double times more than you. And he said, it means Elijah told him, "Thou hast asked a hard thing." Wow, you've asked me a really hard thing. Okay, nevertheless, if thou see me when I am taken from thee, it shall be so into thee. But if not, it shall not to be so. Tells him, well, if I'm going to be taking off from you, you'll be seeing me taking off. So that's what will happen if I'm not going to be going. So it's not going to happen. Okay. And it came to pass, as they still went on and talked. They are walking and talking, that behold, there appeared a chariot of fire and horses of fire, which parted them both asunder. And Elijah went up by a whirlwind into heaven. Okay, they're walking, they're talking, and suddenly fire and horses are taking Elijah up to the heaven. And Elisha saw it, and he cried, my father, the chariots of Israel and the horsemen thereof." And he saw him no more. And he took hold of his own clothes and rent them into two pieces. Okay? He took up also the mantle of Elijah that fell from him and went back and stood by the bank of the Jordan. What a drama, huh? Elijah is being taken away from Elisha, and Elisha is screaming at him, my father! And suddenly he doesn't see him anymore. And he takes the garment that Elijah had on his shoulders, and he takes them apart. And it's also a symbol for him being mourning for his teacher. And then he stands on the river bank. And who's looking at him? The 50 men of the prophet. They say, Elijah was taken. Not what he will do. He's standing in front of the water. Now he'll have to dip into the water? Or maybe something else will happen. Okay? Very dramatic point. He took up also the mantle of Elijah that fell from him and went back and stood by the bank of the Jordan. And he took the mantle of Elijah that fell from him and smote the water and said, "Where is the Lord, the God of Elijah?" And when he also had smitten the water, they were divided hither and thither, and Elisha went over. Okay? What does it mean? He got his ordination. The power of his teacher moved to him, and he was able to smote the water and to go down in the dry land. And the prophets looking at him, and after that they come and they shook his hand and say, "We understand." Okay, they shake his hand, they also bow to him because they understand that there is a new boss around. Okay, so again, the Jewish tradition is all about the fact that these waters are a place of transition. Okay, just like the Israelites moved here and they had a transition from the people of the desert into the promised land, over here also Elijah went through a very deep transition. He became from, a pupil, he became the prophet himself. And he was basically ordained here in the Jordan River. So, when John the Baptist come over here and he comes to baptize people in the Jordan River, he already know these traditions about that place. A place of transition, a place of, to be born again from.
Reborn.
To be reborn. Okay? And he stands here, and Jesus comes from the north, yes? And I'm gonna read it out. I'm reading it from Matthew 3, chapter 13. Then Jesus came from the Galilee to the Jordan to John to be baptized by him. John would have prevented him, saying, "I need to be baptized by you, and do you come to me?" Tells him, "I'm the one who needs to be baptized by you, and you come over to me?" But Jesus answered him, "Let it be so now, for thus it is fitting for us to fulfill all righteousness." Then he consented. And when Jesus was baptized, immediately he went up from the water, and behold, the heavens were opened to him. And he saw the Spirit of God descending like a dove and coming to rest on him. And behold, a voice from heaven said, "This is my beloved Son, with whom I am well pleased." Okay? Guys, the Christian tradition tells us that Jesus comes over. John the Baptist tells him, "I'm supposed to be baptized at your hands, and you came to be baptized at my hands." He tells him, "Don't worry, this is what the plan is about to be." And he goes into the water, immediately go out, and over there we can see the the Holy Trinity. The Son,
The Holy
the Holy Spirit is the dove, and the Father that is
With
calling
the
from the
voice.
sky, "This is my Son, whom I chose." Okay? So this is what is called the scene of Epiphany, the place where Jesus, the side, the heavenly, godly side of Jesus went out in public. Yes, and his cousin John pointing at him saying, "This is the man." Okay? And that's the tradition around the Epiphany. Again, theologically, it's a place of rebirth. According to the Christian theology, Jesus was born once in the flesh as he was baby in Bethlehem, and the second time as a God
Spiritually.
on earth here in the Epiphany. Okay? So this is again the water of the Jordan River enabled people, enabled Jesus to make a transformation. And the theological message behind that place is the fact that sorry, the Christian believer, the one who's going to be faithful, is going to enter this water. The water are just like a womb, and when you go out of the water, be baptized, he will enter into the promised land. New life, promised
Born
land.
again.
A place of rebirth. Okay? So it's not just that the symbolism of the Israelites crossing into the promised land. It's also Jesus bringing these people who are faithful into the promised land of the believers. Okay? So it's very interesting, the theological side of things. By the way, in the ancient churches in the land of Israel, I'm talking about ancient lectionary timetable that is being preserved by ancient communities. For example, the community, the Armenian community, which I do research on, I did my research on, is locating the day of birth, means Christmas, the day of birth of Jesus, in the same day of Epiphany. Up until today, the Armenians celebrate two feasts on the same day. Why is that? Because in the early church and early Christianity, they celebrated the two feasts in the same day. And why do the Armenians preserve it? Because they explain me, Michal, we never had to approach any pagan people. We didn't have to change our timetable. We always preserved it to stay original as it was. And up until today, this is how we celebrate. So if you go to, by the way, it's the 18th and 19th of January. This is when they celebrate in Bethlehem. And they're supposed to go the same day, on the 19th of January, to the Jordan River to celebrate the Epiphany. They don't do it because they go on a Sunday right afterwards, okay? Because it's a little bit too much, the celebrations, that's what they explain me. But theologically, and according to their timeline, they're supposed to do it on the same day. And it's very interesting because we can understand that the early Christians have celebrated the birth of Jesus on both aspects on the same day. It makes sense, okay? Today it's different in different denominations. We're not going to get into it. But think about this point, which basically symbolized so much in early days, in ancient days. Of course, what we see today, yes. First of all, we see the Jordan River that is flowing from the Sea of Galilee. But there is a huge dam on the southern on the southern side of the Sea of Galilee, the dam of the Ganya, and it blocks the water from going through the Jordan River. Okay, so just a certain amount of water goes over there. Also, some of the resources, the main resources of the Jordan River, the water of the Jordan River, which used to flow from the area of Jordan, the Moab Mountains, are being blocked and being used by the Jordanians alongside the Jordanian Jordan Valley. So the Jordan River lost from its power and from his resources. And this is why today it looks like that, very, very muddy, very narrow. By the way, if during winters, which are very strong, very high, this can be all covered with water, okay? And you can also see on your left-hand side, you see there's the stick of wood over there. This is the line of the water in the winter of 2013, when the winter was very, very intense. Okay, so that's how it goes, and that now we can have some kind of an understanding how the Jordan River looked like in ancient times. Look at it in the Madama map. It's a huge river. Okay, now this is the Israeli side. In front of us is the Jordanian side. As I said in the bus beforehand, the exact borderline between Israel and Jordan goes in the middle of this huge river. It's not that huge, and this is why we have soldiers here. Yes, they are posted here all the time, because these are soldiers which are posted along the border lines. Okay, So they have to be here all the time, watching the border, make sure that no one is crossing the border. The other side will also have Jordanian soldiers, okay? And sometimes we can see pilgrims who comes from the Jordanian side, and they will speak to the pilgrims on the Israeli side, especially on the feast of Epiphany. There's a Catholic Epiphany and also the Greek Orthodox Epiphany. Yes.
They stand in front of each other.
The Orthodox Epiphany is on the 18th and the 19th of January over here. And there's huge celebrations that are taking place over here. Different denominations come with pilgrims, with music, with dancing. And of course, all the processions of the Holy Patriarch and the Brotherhood, and they all come with their gowns over here. It's not as hot, so it's much better during winter time, and it's very, very impressive. It's beautiful. Of course, during the ceremony that is taking place over here by the different denominations, they use the white doves to bring them up in the air as a symbolism.
I want to add something. We walk from the Greek Orthodox Church. We walk by foot until here, and nobody's allowed to be in this area down, in order not to be, because in the other side as well, there's some kind of like confrontation zone, and somehow. So
yes, you walk from the John the Baptist, but if you're just a regular, very curious person. They send you to walk 10 kilometers away. This is what I did in 2019, right before COVID. I just walked for a few hours till I got here. A few years ago, it was even easier to arrive here. Today, I sometimes recommend groups to come on the 19th of January because the 18th is too crowded and no one is able to approach the water and to see the ceremonies. But in the 19th, we have the Assyrians, we have the Ethiopians coming over, we have Coptics.